Hey everybody, welcome back to Lettermen Row. This is the championship drive brought to you by Byers Auto. I am Austin Ward. That's Jeremy Birmingham and Spencer Holbrook. The Buckeyes ramping up preparation. They are a week away from the national title game against Alabama. Ryan Day spoke for the first time since the Sugar Bowl and getting ready for the trip down to South Florida. And he was joined by Tuff Borland and Trey Sermon subbing in for Justin Fields. And that's where every conversation about the Buckeyes will begin for the next week. Not supposed to be a sign of panic or that Justin Fields will not play, although he was scheduled to be the offensive representative today for the Buckeyes. Ryan Day said that he definitely expects him to play next Monday. Will he be 100%? That seems pretty unlikely, Berm.
Yeah, I mean, has he ever been 100%? I mean, that's the thing about being quarterback and playing college football at a high level. You get hit a lot, and you're always going to be hurting. I think he's probably going to be hurting a little more than maybe he ever has before. But I guess all you have to do is see the second half of the Clemson game to see that he's clearly able to withstand the pain to play. And, you know, Ryan Day did say that Justin woke up on Saturday and said he felt better than he expected to. I would imagine that he'll be handled fairly delicately over these next few days. Justin Fields, the Buckeyes have had 7,000 practices this year. I don't think he needs the reps. So I think that it's really about mental preparation for Alabama more than it is physical anyway for Justin Fields. And I personally was just glad to see that Ryan Day was in such a great mood when everyone kept asking him about it all day, over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the national media doesn't get the memo that we've all experienced over the last couple of years with the way Ohio State will handle injuries. Obviously, you ask once, you try and get maybe some insight on what you would do, but no one at Ohio State is going to say if a rib was cracked or broken or strained, whatever, anything like that's not ever been the case. And, you know, it was kind of irritating on Saturday to see the way people were talking about the medical treatment of him as if Justin Fields was going to reveal a specific diagnosis immediately after the game on Friday night or in advance of a matchup against Alabama so that they would have a target to hit. That's not the way Ohio State operates. The fact that he said he's definitely going to play, that's a lot stronger language than he even used about the thumb a week ago. So there is a little bit of insight that you could take away from that. But if, you know, the next time the Ohio State offense talks, I wouldn't expect anything more from Justin Fields than he gave on Friday night.
Yeah, I think why would he? Sorry, Spencer, I didn't mean to cut you off, but this idea that Ohio State forced him to go back onto the field on Friday night is absurd. I mean, it's pure ludicrousness. Luda. Go ahead.
I'm glad we got to sneak that in.
Yeah, thank you, Berm. I needed that for my Monday. But I think, you know, he's obviously going to play. That's just dumb to ask if he's not going to play. I mean, it's the national championship game. He threw for, I think, 200 yards in the second half in a game that he had just gotten hurt in. And he said he woke up feeling better on Saturday than he expected to, because I think we talked after the game on how rough he was probably going to be feeling the next morning. I think, you know, it looked like he got the wind knocked out of him. Maybe there's a rib issue there, but we're not going to completely speculate on what's going on. As long as he's on the field, Ohio State's got a better chance of winning the national title, whether he's 100% or 65%. So I think as long as he feels good enough right now to be on track to play, I don't think anybody else has anything to worry about.
It couldn't have been fun for him because Ohio State adjusted they treated this game differently. It was like a normal regular season road game. You know, they filed out of there. We were shooting our rapid reaction, also brought to you by Byers Auto, about 2 hours after the game ended. And, you know, the players are trucking out. Well, they were going straight to the airport. They flew home, didn't land until, I think it was 4:30 in the morning when they got back. You know, to deal with those injuries and as rough as he was feeling afterwards, that could not have been an enjoyable. I hope he got to sleep a very long time and that he actually didn't just wake up again until Sunday, because that dude took an absolute beating in that game.
The good news is for Ohio State and for Justin Fields that they're not flying like the rest of us are. Those seats are a little more comfortable. I am sure that Justin had some, intense, back massage thing happening during his flight.
B7 boarding group? No,
I don't think that Justin Fields was, sitting in the middle seat of row 37 of a Boeing 737-700 series. So I think he's good. But, the truth is for Justin Fields, like I said, every game that Justin Fields plays, he gets hurt because he plays with sort of reckless abandon, and that's what makes him successful. Clearly, the Buckeyes were a little bit worried on Friday night after it happened immediately, and he missed one play and then came back in and proceeded to throw 11 touchdowns. So I don't think we need to talk about it much more than that. If Justin Fields wakes up tomorrow and can't play, Ohio State is probably still not going to tell us. So let's move on and expect to see one. And if you see anyone else, then, danger, Will Robinson.
All right, so the guy that has gone in pressure situations the last couple times has been C.J. Stroud. We believed him to be the backup all along. I know there were questions in October. It feels like 75 years ago when Jack Miller went in the game. C.J. Stroud, at that point, our understanding was that he was dealing with a hamstring injury. So it's not as if things have changed. He's always been C.J. Stroud considered to be the backup. We've talked about this, and Spencer and Berm, you both mentioned this the other day when he went in. Would have been nice to see C.J. Stroud throw a pass, even though he has the faith of the coaching staff to go in the game. We don't know what he can do as a passer. He ran successfully when he went into that game late against Michigan State, which also feels like it was a very, very long time ago. But I'm just throwing this out there that if something happens, C.J. Stroud would have to be the guy and step into that Cardale Jones backup to the rescue role.
Yeah, I don't think that's a terrible backup option for Ohio State. Obviously, you don't really know what he can do, and you would love to have had the non-conference games to get him in there, or a couple more games against, Maryland, for example, maybe even Michigan. The way the season played out, if they would have got to play Michigan, maybe he would have gotten to play it the last few minutes of that game. But
he would have played more than a couple minutes against Michigan.
Yeah, probably. Maybe he should have played a couple drives at the end against Clemson. But I just think he has a skill set that we've seen. We just don't really know in a college setting how it works. But I think obviously Ryan Day has some confidence in him, or else he wouldn't have put him out there against Michigan State. Maybe he would have went to Gunnar Hoke or Jack Miller. So obviously there's some confidence there. But you never want to talk about your backup quarterback. You never want the backup quarterback to be the focus. But luckily for the Buckeyes, whoever's handing the ball off to Trey Sermon has a pretty good chance, because Trey Sermon's running so well right now.
I would think, Berm, if there was you talked about how many practices Ohio State has had, and Ryan Day was asked if he needed to do something differently with Justin Fields' reps this week. I don't believe that he needs to practice today or tomorrow or Wednesday, and it probably behooves Ohio State to let C.J. Stroud get some of these. It's been such a weird year. The same could be said for Jack Miller as well. You need everybody to be as ready as possible for a game like this against Alabama, but probably let the backup have some of those number one reps early in the week at least, because he hasn't had the game experience. He hasn't had the spring ball that he thought, and you're one play away from potentially needing somebody who can make plays with his arms and his legs.
Yeah, and I think that probably is the reason why we didn't see him throw the ball against Clemson, because the Buckeyes knew that Justin Fields was only one play away at that moment, and it sort of becomes a just maintain, let CJ get in there, run the play, because Justin was only out of that play because he had to be, because he got hurt on the play, and so they're required to take him out, which I guess makes it even more remarkable that he would have just played the next play if he was able to, according to the rules. So I think the Buckeyes are in that position. We're just like, hey, let's make sure we don't make a mistake here. But at that point, it was 21-14. And a big touchdown needed to happen. So, I think they felt like they needed to put points on the board that drive no matter what. But knowing Justin was going to come back in, you could have just taken the easy way out with the handoff. But no doubt about it, this year has been so stupid. Knock on anything. I don't care. Find some wood if you need to. But Justin Fields could test positive for COVID tomorrow, and then all this is moot. So, this entire year, the fact that the Buckeyes lost those pre-conference games, that sucks. It really does suck for C.J. Stroud and Jack Miller and Gunnar Hoke, because those guys have gotten no chance to really get on the field in a normal game situation. And here's the, not so, big secret. Justin Fields is probably going to get banged up a play or two against Alabama too, because that's just what happens when you play against Alabama. So C.J. Stroud better be ready.
Okay, so I thought maybe we would be done analyzing all of the coaches' polls, but Ryan Day got another question about that today. Nick Saban gave Ohio State much more credit than Dabo Swinney did, but it was brought up again. Nick Saban had Ohio State number 5 and behind Texas A&M. Ryan Day is basically becoming well-versed in ignoring that stuff. But if there's another chance to grab some motivation that Ohio State really doesn't need to play for a national championship, there it is. They can remind everyone that they were number 5, Spencer.
It's the national championship game. Who cares? Like the semifinal, okay. You didn't even Dabo didn't want him in the playoff. He put him number 11. Understandable. Use that as the motivation you need to get through that semifinal. You get to the national championship game, you're 60-minute period away from hoisting the trophy that everybody plays for. You don't need this. Like it just doesn't. It didn't make any sense to me that he fielded the questions, but nonetheless, he did. I know everybody has to ask him because I guess it's a necessity and a job requirement for their job. But it just doesn't make any sense to me to ask him about it. But I'm sure that it will be a little bit of motivation. It won't be written on the whiteboard. I'm sure if the Buckeyes win, ranked 5, because top 5 is still pretty good. It's better than 11, I would say. So I just didn't really understand it, but whatever. People just have to ask their questions, I guess.
How many SEC teams did Nick Saban put in his top 4? 3?
100.
So as part owner of the SEC, Nick Saban, only 2? He didn't put Florida in there? Or Georgia or LSU? I don't know, anyone at this point for Saban. But again, as part owner of the SEC, Nick Saban certainly has a vested interest in the league, getting multiple playoff teams. So I don't personally care where he put him. Putting the Ohio State 5th to me is basically him acknowledging that they should have been in the playoff, but he had, obligations to put in other SEC teams.
I think the same thing is true here. That was true for Clemson. If they had to be honest, they did not want to play Ohio State. The Coaches Bowl has no say over who gets in anyway. And honestly, I don't know why there still is a Coaches Bowl or an AP poll when it's completely irrelevant to crowning a national champion. It's definitely helped provide a lot of content and stuff to debate over the last couple of weeks, but some of this stuff is just really silly. And I'm really glad that whoever that was got to squeeze off their question while the 3 of us didn't even get in for Ryan Day and the coach that we cover for our livelihoods 365 days a year. But that's beside the point. Spencer, you are correct. Ohio State does not need any extra motivation to go win the national championship. And even if they did, they're already a 7-8 point underdog to Alabama once again. So that by itself pretty much ensures that Ohio State will be locked in this week.
It's pretty clear. Go ahead, Spencer.
It's the national championship game. I don't care if he would have ranked them 130th. They made the national championship game. It's a massive game. Go ahead, Berm. I just don't get it.
No, I mean, I think it was pretty clear from listening to the Alabama press conference today. Dabo Swinney's rampant word vomit over the last month was obviously noticed by the people at Alabama because they didn't say anything. And because that's what programs that are, professional places are doing. They don't go out there and run their mouths when they don't gain anything from it. They're going to go out there. They're going to say all the right things. They're going to say Ohio State belongs there. They're going to say they're a good team, have utmost respect. I love this guy. I love this guy. I love this guy. This is that kumbaya. I mean, that's how it should be when you're leading up to the national championship game. It's boring, but that gives Nick Saban's program is not going to go out there and offer up any, scuttlebutt to try to rile up Ohio State.
Yeah, that's going to remove a lot of the subplots from the previews and all of the championship drives brought to you by Byers Auto over the next week. So we'll probably just be talking a lot more football, which is fine by me because these are the 2 best teams in the country. This is the matchup that most people, I think, expected when we go back to those meaningless polls that were even more meaningless back in August, the 1 and 2, Alabama and Ohio State. These are the most talented teams, the best coached, this is the high stakes game that we live for. Can't wait to go cover it with you guys. We'll be down in South Florida by the end of the week. A lot more coverage to come throughout the week, building up to Ohio State and Alabama next week in South Florida. That's Berm, Spencer Holbrook. I'm Austin Ward. Stay with us for full coverage of the Buckeyes at lettermenrow.com.